Look, this is my PC, my perfect workspace, but sitting here all the time kills my creativity. So a month ago, I bought a Mac M4. Why? Because I've never used macOS before, and instead of learning it slowly, I threw myself into the deep end. For the next month, no PC at all. Even for gaming, editing, script writing, everything had to be on the Mac. Could I actually survive? Let's find out. Okay, as soon as I bought my Mac, I decided to organize the desktop first, because I guess this isn't a taskbar and it doesn't have a start menu like on a PC. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes on Windows I feel like the desktop is just for aesthetics, not for storing things, at least for me. I know most people make their workspace messy like this, storing all the files, games, programs on the desktop. I don't judge that, but doesn't it look messy to you? For example, I'm so used to keeping my desktop clean that when something appears there, I try to delete it as soon as possible. It really triggers me, I'm not gonna lie. And if I need something, I store it in the start menu, which isn't visible all the time. You just press the Windows key and choose what you need. Sure, some people pin their files to the taskbar, but to me, that's basically the same as putting it on the desktop. So when I saw the dock on macOS, it triggered me so much I wanted to remove it from my site. And I did remove it, by the way. But then I noticed if I need something, I have to drag my cursor to the bottom and the dock pops up again. Yeah, maybe that's convenient for someone, but for me it's just annoying. You can't remove it completely. I don't know why. I value clean screens, and if I need something, I'd rather use the application menu that appears with a gesture and shows all the apps on screen. That's why more convenient. Why don't they add that instead of this dock menu? It's not only ugly, but also not convenient for me. The only reason I use it is to check whatever an app is running or not. In all other cases, I use the app menu, which recently changed slightly with macOS 26, but whatever. Apple says macOS prioritizes consistency and stability. I get that, but in terms of flexibility, like being able to make things more beautiful or convenient for yourself, it's kind of limited. So when you buy a Mac, you can only change a few things. Another thing I personally didn't like is also related to design. Not only can't you remove the dock, but you also can easily change icons or the cursor. In Windows, changing the icon or cursor is super easy. You just open the settings, download some zip files, and install them. But on macOS, you can only do that partially. For some system apps, you can't change the icon at all. And since the recent macOS 26 update, it's pretty much impossible. Even if you could, you'd have to change several versions of the icon, not just one. Now there are multiple styles like glass, the ordinary type, or colored versions, which makes everything harder. But what I did like are the standing animations and how easily it connects to the iPhone through AirDrop. That's why sending images from your face to your vacations is super easy. And once you've done that, you can work on them directly in editing programs, whatever it's photos or videos you shot on your iPhone. So yeah, I think people prize Macs not for flexibility, but for how well they connect within the Apple ecosystem. So the conclusion for this point is that it's really not that flexible when it comes to convenience. I'm someone who analyzes things objectively, no matter the price. And when people say macOS is more convenient than any other OS, I can't fully agree. In my opinion, they're lying to themselves to feel better about spending that much money. Or maybe they've just never explored Linux or even the more flexible side of Windows. And the next thing I had to struggle with was editing program subscriptions. You probably don't even know this, but when people edit their videos, they don't always buy the software. They often use other methods instead. Basically, Adobe programs for editing are quite expensive for many people, which is why they prefer either using free programs like DaVinci Resolve or using Adobe through alternative means. So I was the second type of user on my Windows PC or anywhere else. Don't judge me, I live in a pretty poor country, and our economy can't handle those prices. For over 4 years, I got used to Adobe programs, but before buying a Mac, I didn't even think about this issue. Because on a MacBook, you can't really use those other methods. You either have to buy the software or go with DaVinci instead. But like I said earlier, Adobe is expensive, so I had to go for DaVinci. On the bright side, I would be learning a new program and expanding my knowledge. That was the plan. But man, I struggled so badly, I'm not gonna lie. Because during this challenge, I suddenly had to travel to another city for a week. Let's just say it was a little trip, but I couldn't stop producing videos, so I took my Mac, thinking I'd figured out DaVinci on the go. Spoiler alert, I couldn't. It was hard. On the 4th day of the trip, I had no choice but to watch tutorials or use something like ChatGPT. But even AI didn't help much, because the instructions weren't clear. So I just pushed through and finished the video slowly. In the end, it took me 5 days to finish one video. If I'd used Premiere Pro, I would have been done in a day. So yeah, I really struggled with that. But don't think it's exactly an issue with the Mac. It's more about the fact that I can't afford Adobe programs. Still, it left a bad impression of macOS on me, even though everyone probably knew this limitation already. And probably the next thing I noticed is when I used my Mac around people, let's say in coffee shops or in the library, I feel like a businessman sitting there solving billion-dollar problems. Even though that wasn't actually the case, I felt great. I guess people didn't even pay attention to me. And even if they did, they probably thought, what an idiot. What the hell is he doing here? I was just sitting there pretending to work. I was like the aesthetic of the Mac users in coffee shops. They looked like main characters in their own story. But at the end, I wasn't working at all. I was just staring at my YouTube analytics with a serious face. People wouldn't understand now anyway. But by the end of the month, I started to understand that vibe, because in the coffee shops or libraries, it's actually easier to focus than at home. So I ended up going there more often and actually working. In reality though, I spend a lot of money on coffee. And coffee is fucking expensive luxury stuff. So the conclusion for this point is that the Mac is portable enough to work anywhere. I could even work in the middle of the ocean for 18 hours straight on its battery, as long as I have an internet connection. Alright, I already told you that I can travel with it without any problem, because it's easy to carry around. But the thing is, after using it for a month, I still haven't fully learned it. I have a lot to learn. And the downside of using a Mac is that if you don't figure out how to learn, you'll struggle with it for a long time, until you learn all the keyboard commands, trackpad gestures, how to use the terminal, and all that. By the way, if you're a Mac user, you can share some life hacks for new users like me. I'd be grateful. When it came to me on the first day, I couldn't even figure out how to right-click on the trackpad. So I watched a ton of tutorials until I learned how to do basic things like scrolling, double-clicking, and everything else you need for general browsing. But in the second week, I noticed I could do 5-6 different keyboard shortcuts like taking screenshots or closing all the tabs. After that, I didn't learn anything else. I was just lazy. But if you're not like me, I'm 100% sure there are plenty of shortcuts you can use to become a pro. I'll probably learn them later. And by the way, when I bought it, I also got the new revolutionary update from Apple's world. Yeah, it's macOS 26, which for me is not that bad. I think there's no real difference from macOS 18 except for the glass design, which looks decent, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know, I think that's just a matter of preference. Not everyone likes it. And probably the final thing I did was, of course, gaming. Actually, for a whole month. I didn't really feel the need to play games because for me it wasn't necessary. But near the end of the month, I wanted to play after all. It wasn't a random game though, I specifically wanted to play CS2 because it's the most played game on my Steam library. It's kind of my addiction. So I decided to play it, and on top of that, I was really curious to see if the MacBook could handle gaming decently. Of course, I downloaded it, but it turned out that the game can't run on macOS, because Valve dropped macOS support with CS2. You can still play it through other apps, but I couldn't test it directly. I looked at tons of other gaming options, but actually macOS doesn't support many popular games. So if you ever want to play something on a Mac, you have to launch it through other apps. The only game I could run natively was Minecraft. And in Minecraft, with the settings I used, I got around 100 FPS. I even tried blowing up some TNTs and doing random stuff, but still 100 FPS, which is actually decent. That shows us the MacBook is technically good enough for gaming. The MacBook itself isn't. Even though we are talking about Minecraft here, macOS doesn't support a lot of big titles. If it did, I'd say it's probably decent for gaming, but of course not at that price point. The price is still high considering the performance. It's not made for gaming, I repeat. MacBooks are great for editing. If I wanted a machine for gaming, I'd either build a PC, buy a gaming laptop, or even just get a console. But since I already have a PC, I didn't need to do that. I bought the Mac for portable editing, and honestly I liked it. It's super convenient when you're traveling or burn out of ideas. So, do I regret it? Not at all. Yeah, the price is expensive, but for me it was necessary and good purchase. So if you liked the video, thanks for watching and take care.